Ibra di testa, Tonali, gol! Sandro! Meritato! Sandro!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by AJ.
I don't know why that was weird this time, but yeah, I'm here. I was a lot more excited last week than I am this week, and yeah, I'll try my best to be nice, but we also have Madison.
Yeah, he's not excited because I'm here, but I am because it's been a couple weeks since I've been here, so happy our schedules could align finally.
Yeah, good to have you back. I think it was weird because I normally say Anthony Torgrud, and for some reason I jumped straight to AJ. But yeah, we're here. Look, boys, I can't figure this team out. Maddie, you've missed out on the last 2 weeks where we've been positive, which is unfortunate. You know, that 4-game winning streak without conceding a goal, and now you've got to come back to talk about a pretty dismal display and an even worse result in the scheme of what happened around us in the table. But yeah, I just can't figure this team out, man. Like, you know, we seem to have passed a big hurdle with that 2-0 win against Atalanta. Then we're going to Fiorentina on nearly a week's rest, playing a team that's been so inconsistent this season, have only won twice in 2023 before playing us. And I want to say that's up there with one of our worst displays of the season. Like, look, the Lazio and Sassuolo games were bad, but they almost feel separate now. They almost feel like
we just looked very unbothered. And when you put Bakayoko in instead of Adli, and then Adli in for the last 3 minutes or so.
And he created a goal. Like,
I know.
And the fact he's not in the Champions League line. You know, let me put up the Fiorentina thing.
Oh, yeah, we just
have at it. Continue.
It's just sad. You know, when we lost to Lazio and Sassuolo, everyone was calling for Pioli, and then we won a game, and everyone's like, "Oh, we love Pioli again." Like, no, he still is not like. His man management's not great. I thought CDK looked pretty decent. He did a lot of things that Diaz doesn't do, like throw people off the ball and be aggressive, because Diaz gets thrown off the ball. Diaz also helps create chances, and CDK did none of that. So it's a give and take.
I'm telling you, man, CDK's position has nothing to do with goal. If we play him as the defensive mid or just someone in that pivot, I think he's going to do so much better than if we put him up top and expect him to score goals. I know he was a striker last season, and I know we expect him to be an attacking mid this season, but we're seeing him. He's like you said, he's strong, he's tall, he's defensive, aggressive, he's kicking people off the ball, but he just has no goal-scoring mentality right now. And I know he did last season, but it's gone right now, and right now is where we live. You know, we got to do something now, and I think maybe a positional adjustment is in his future. People change positions all the time in their career. You got to be able to change and adapt if you want to survive in this game long term, and he's not. As far as Pioli, I said he was not out of the woods.
The coach is not. Sorry,
yes, yeah. No, you're fine. I said Pioli wasn't out of the woods, and I've said it like 3 weeks in a row, and we kept winning, and people kept yelling at me on Twitter saying, like, he's done good. Like, what do you want him to do? I want him to not lose to Fiorentina 2-1. That's what I want him to do. I want him to beat a team we should be beating and not drop us from tied for second with a chance to go clear at second to now in fifth place because Juventus can't beat fucking Roma. Like, it's ridiculous how far we continue to fall. Whatever day this game was, like, it's still weighing too heavily on my mind. As soon as full-time kicked off, so during the game, I mute all of our chats because, you know, streams aren't even, and I don't want spoilers. As soon as the game ended, I left my phone on the couch and I went about my day, and I didn't check it until the next morning. I didn't take it off mute. And thank God I did that, because the first thing I saw when I came back was Madison making a short joke. I was like,
did I?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of. You said Badera's taller than me, which I said multiple times. Yeah, he is taller than me. I never made it a secret, but yeah, I was like, okay, that's not what I need to see right now. So yeah, I was frustrated. Still want Pioli out. It's funny because I actually said last week on the podcast that I was predicting a win finally, because Fiorentina suck. They're a horrible team.
You are not allowed to predict wins.
The thing with Fiorentina is they've been like inconsistent at best, and at worst, pretty much all of 2023, they've been shit. And like, there's been calls for Italiano to lose his job, and you know the squad that they have should not be in the bottom half of the table. They've got a pretty good team on paper, and we saw it transition from paper to the pitch on Saturday night. Pioli, since he's being Milan's manager, so back in 2019, has lost 6 away games in Serie A with us, and 3 of them have been against Italiano. There was the Spezia 2-0 in the first season that kind of ruined the run that we were on, and then he's lost twice away to Fiorentina since then. So he seems to be kind of kryptonite in that sense. But sometimes I think, so we were really, really flat. I was worried about a lot of the things that we saw in our performance. Pioli said after the game that we weren't distracted by the game on Wednesday. I think that it's impossible not to have, an eye on the game on Wednesday, but at the same time, the changes were made anyway to protect certain players, and Brahim and Leao and Krunic weren't available regardless. So it's not as if some of those changes were voluntary rotation.
Yeah, I didn't think the Champions League game had anything to do with it, to be honest with you. In fact, I didn't even know the game was Wednesday until he said we weren't focusing on the Wednesday game. And I said, what game's on Wednesday? So, I mean, maybe that's just me being disconnected right now, but all the changes were out of necessity. But the reality is we didn't have an attacking outlet with Leao gone, with Diaz gone. We could have used Adley, who showed he was attacking. We could have used Salamakers, who I've been saying is attacking, but people wanted Macias because he scored a couple goals in flop of the match performances. But, whatever. I guess that one came back to bite us finally.
Yeah, and as I say, we were really, really flat. Nothing seemed to click for us at all. If we'd been building week by week from the Torino win to the Spurs win, the Monza win wasn't great, but the Atalanta win was fantastic. We're thinking, right, we can put another team to the sword that have been pretty crap this season, and it just didn't happen. Like the highest rated player will probably have been a 6 out of 10, and the rest are all 4s and 5s. It was really bad. It was a collective shit show essentially. And that's what worries you ahead of a big game, but also because the players need to know the importance of every single league game between now and the end of the season, because we are in a deep shit dogfight to get back into the top 4. And I think we're in trouble. Like we're in serious trouble while ever we can produce performances like that in games where we should be targeting 3 points. All of that being said, I was impressed with Fiorentina. They were very, very good.
I wasn't. No, I thought it was our fault. Everything was our fault. Rebic can't complete a pass. Macias can't hold on to a ball. Like, I thought Benacer and Tonali were fine. It's just everyone going forward can't do anything. Giroud's still making those flicks, which I get. It works every now and then, and we got to build something. He's not a guy who's going to run with the ball, and we're only passing him the ball early. So everything that Fiorentina did was simply recovering balls we were letting go, and they were playing our game. They were countering. If we had Leao, we would have been up 2-0 in the first half, guarantee it. Not saying Leao would have scored those. I don't know who would have. But we just needed someone who could counter, someone who could go fast, which is, again, my issue with not starting Salamakers. We've seen it. The way he intercepts these balls right on in the edge of our box, and they could run down, and you saw it as soon as he got the ball. He knew immediately when a man was on him. He knew immediately when to pass it to Teo, and Teo scored a goal. Now, I'm not saying we didn't create chances because Giroud had a really good one. Zlatan had a shot on target. Teo had an earlier one that he should have scored. There were opportunities for us without Salamakers and without Adley in. Like, we could have done it, but we would have had a lot more if we started with those players. Like, obviously, no one knew what Adley was going to do. We all want to see him, but we haven't seen anything to say, like, yeah, he's going to help us. We should be starting him. But bringing on Bakayoko, I mean, what are we doing here?
I didn't understand that.
It makes no sense other than height and strength, but he gave away the ball every time he touched it.
You could understand it against Monza because they were pumping balls into the box and he wanted the height and he wanted the physicality. But you can't understand it in a game where we need to score to get back into it. We're chasing a game and you're bringing on a defensive-minded player. What does that say about Pobega and Vranks? Like, I know we've said about Pobega on here
about
before.
Adley, too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who did Adley? Adley came on and towards the end, obviously, but who did he come on for?
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He came on for... So the
and
thing
look,
is,
that's
maybe
probably
Benacer...
the fans' fault that CDK started over Adley because the fans have been fucking begging for it. You see Leao on his Instagram story saying CDK will score today. You heard it here first. No, you didn't. You didn't hear it there. It didn't happen. So.
Well, you did hear it there. It just didn't happen.
Yes, but you get what I'm saying. I'm just fired up. The fucking anger that came out of me during this game was next level. Like I had to excuse myself very soon after and just fucking go wallow and just
it makes sense why CDK started over Adley because he has more game time. He's more game in form.
Well, and that's been
in
all the
form.
fan cry has been start CDK, give him a full 90.
He
And I've
should
been
have had
saying
an
it too.
assist.
I'm not exempt to that. Like
Okay,
I've been
but
saying
he
it.
didn't look like he looked good for the full 90. He didn't look shitty.
He just
was
didn't look
the
good for the position he
Third
was in.
highest rated player on FootMob.
He should have had an assist. Like when he sat
That's a good
down, that Fiorentina defender, and I can't remember who it was, he sat him down and went on that little shimmy dribble and then put in that cross for Macias that for some reason he tried to head in rather than head back across goal. But that was a game-changing play. Like he did it. Finally, he did something that got us on the front foot briefly for that period.
Well, and that's been the story of all his created chances. All his created chances have been like that.
So if you're wasting them, it is what it is. I didn't think CDK was terrible, but we're at the point now with CDK, and this is going to catch a lot of heat, but the season's a write-off. He's not going to end the season with 5 goals and 5 assists. He's just not. It's not happening. So I think Pioli's going to play Brahim Diaz for the most important games with a bit of rotation. We just have to accept that and hope that by some miracle, CDK springs into life. Now what we're looking at with him is for him to have a full pre-season ahead of next season and then hopefully make the number 10 role his own. That's like the best case scenario from this point onwards.
He's also going to have a new manager next season.
Probably, potentially, yeah. The way that we're heading.
I do not see Pioli staying past this season. You can blame it on so many things, like not having a real striker, but like,
right. So you come into a game with 4 wins in a row, and 4 clean sheets. The media are off your back. They're talking about the new certainties that we have, all these bright spots, the 3-man defense. We look better in attack against Atalanta, and be this the fault of the coach or the players, I think it's a bit of both. They were not up for it. And for the 3rd time now, maybe more than that, if you go back even further, Pioli has been outthought by Vincenzo Italiano. Like,
but he's been a hyped-up coach, though. Like, let's give Italiano his roses. He's done a
dreadful job this season. Dreadful.
They don't have
Fiorentina
a striker
were like
either.
15. Yes, they do. They spent money on Artur Cabral, who looked all right.
He scored a few nice goals, yeah.
Yeah, he's been fine. Ikone's not had a good season. I think their front 3 have been inconsistent, and that's been a massive part of the problem. But like on Saturday night, you can't escape it. They were by far better than us. 16 shots, 8 on target. Again, we had less possession.
They had 9 corners in the first half.
They were better. They just pasted us. And I think that's also because we were shit. We set a very low level ourselves. But you can't get outplayed like that by a bottom half team. And we were outplayed. And after such a good run of form, it just reopens all of those doubts ahead of our biggest game of the season. And that's the frustrating thing. I sensed more anger than normal. You know, like this isn't a direct comparative necessarily, but Man United been on an incredible run of form. They got a trophy in the bag. They knocked Barcelona out of the Europa League, who are top of La Liga. Then they're going to lose 7-0 at Liverpool in what is their biggest game of the season. And fans are losing their heads. Some are saying Ten Hag should be sacked because that's unacceptable at any level. Then others are saying we're still having a good season. That's just a bizarre result. I don't really see that same consideration from our fans. I think a lot of our fans are saying we were propped up by a kind of lucky run of 4 games and we're actually back to being dog shit. And our depth is dog shit. Our squad isn't good enough to do anything in this league. Last season was a fluke. You know, there's been an outpouring of frustration, I think, after this game, and rightly so, because the players did not show up, and yeah, it was kind of embarrassing.
Well, and you know, we've had this ridiculous injury crisis. There was a good 3 hours the day before the game where we were fully fit before Diaz got hurt.
Good 3 hours, though.
It was a nice 3 hours, man. I was literally researching how many exact days it was, and before I finished doing that, Brahim was hurt.
It applies now, by the way. So how many days was it? It was a long time.
It was just shy of 700.
Yeah. So add another few on to that, and it's
match week
right
35 of the 2021 season. So not last year, the year prior.
Who?
Yeah.
That was the last match day that we had a fully fit squad.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. That
I
was
remember
Marius'
seeing you
response
say that
too.
in the chat.
Yeah, I was pissed. But I think I still have issues with Pioli and this lineup, even given the fact that we knew Diaz was out, we knew Leao was out, we knew Krunic was out. Because Macias is just not the guy. I don't care that he got 2 goals. He's not the guy. He's just not the guy. Salamakers has proven that position is where he should have been. That was the position he played when we signed him from Anderlecht that was a position we never played him in. And he wasn't a good right winger, but he got a few goals here and there, and he had his little cult following. But as soon as we put him at right wing back, it lit up. The light bulb turned on, the switch flipped, whatever you want to say. He was great. And we just stopped it. And it's like Macias, we've tried at right wing, and he's I think he's on 5 or 6 goals this season. He's got a decent output compared to the rest of our shitty team. But he's still not doing hot right wing. We played him right center mid, and he was awful. And now we put him at wing back, and he got 2 goals, but performance-wise, he's been shit outside of those goals. And Pioli's starting him.
He also got the goals from not right wing back position. For that Monza game, the ball fell to him on the edge of the box. A wing back wouldn't normally find themselves in that position. And then the second goal against Atalanta, he was making a run through on goal like he was a centre forward. So correlation, not causation.
Yeah, so I get Rebic. Rebic is shit. It's whatever, but he had to start. We all knew that. We know Origi's not going to get a full 90. We know Zlatan can't get a full 90. So I have no issue with that. The disrespect to Adley, look, we don't know what we're seeing in training, but we know what we saw in preseason, and we know what we saw in the minutes prior to his performance against Fiorentina, and we know it took him less than 10 minutes to create a goal. He had the pass to Salamakers, who then passed it to Teo and scored.
People are gassing that pass up a little bit too much for me.
Why?
It was a good pass, but it wasn't anything extraordinary.
What are you talking about? He was on the far right side, and he passed to the far left side. He
curled
it over everyone.
Absolutely fine.
That's
a pass that a playmaker should be making. It's not,
exactly. It's a pass a playmaker should be making, something that none of our playmakers are making, except for this one, who we're not playing.
CDK should have had an assist, though, with an actual bit of creativity.
What do you mean actual bit? What was not creative about it?
He dropped his man on the dribble and then dinked in a perfect cross to the far post. I think that was more of it. He did more with that that chance.
Would you rather a guy make a difficult but obvious pass that leads to a goal than a guy who does a little fancy shimmy dance that doesn't lead to a goal?
I don't mind.
Maybe if he did a fancy shimmy dance and then we had a player who could finish, it would have been a goal.
I don't mind. I just think that people are talking about that Adley pass like it was something incredible. That's all. I don't think he's the savior off the back of that. That's.
No, I don't think he's a savior either. But I think he deserves more game time. This is a guy who played 120 minutes, got 7 minutes in a game, comes on as we're down 2-0, and is the only one who still has the know-withal to create a goal. No one else was doing it. Everyone else gave up. But it was the two guys who should have started, who came on late, that created to make the goal.
Also, he came on, or he created a goal in 7 minutes when CDK's had how many chances?
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And he's only had one start still, Yassine Adley, and that was that Verona game where he got dragged off at half-time when the entire team had thrown everyone under the bus like it was a bad performance.
Well, and that's the thing. Pioli finds a scapegoat, and it's usually not the right guy. You saw that game where he took Teo off at halftime. You saw the games where he took Leao off at halftime. He takes off weird players at halftime, and now it sounds like he's dropping Chow for Kier against Spurs, even though Tomori was the one who gave away the penalty and just had the horrendous game overall.
I was going to just transition into that Tomori penalty. He keeps making stupid errors this season. He's got a fair bit of credit in the bank. Like, he was exceptional last season, but this season it's been very, very strange. Like, the Mason Mount one, I think we all agreed probably wasn't a red card, probably wasn't a penalty either in terms of the contact. But if you're Tomori, you learn your lesson. You don't then basically do the same thing again. And that one on Icone really was a penalty.
Yeah, 100%.
No arguments. And Chiao was frustrated with him because he's about to step in and make the intervention. Or you say, okay, he's got past me, he's in the box. If he curls it round past Maignan into the top corner, you say, fair enough, that's a great goal. But I don't think Icone was going to do that. And yet he gave him the only escape route there, and that was to bring him down in the box. And from there, we're chasing the game. But yeah,
Can we talk about DeBello also? What a horrible fucking performance from him. I mean, the penalty he called for us.
Worst I've ever seen.
I was so confused, and granted, my girlfriend doesn't know anything about the sport, but I literally was like, I need a second opinion. What did he see that I didn't see? She obviously didn't see anything either.
The commentators on our TV said it must have been that he didn't see it properly. So don't give a penalty.
That's the thing. Like, so what are you calling?
Then leave it and wait for VAR to intervene.
And that tells you about all the other calls that he's just calling shit on emotion or feeling or what he thinks. And I think he got every single 50-50 wrong, whether it benefited us or benefited Fiorentina. I think he got every call wrong outside of the penalty he gave to Fiorentina. That was the only thing that was legitimate, and we all agreed with that. But, I mean, the one he gave us was just asinine. It should never have happened. The difference between us and Juventus fans is they would have said dirty, I'll take it, but we'll say no. We don't
I would have taken it if he would have given it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we would have scored. I would have celebrated, but I wouldn't have bragged about that victory had that led us to victory or that draw.
I think you would have. I know you pretty well.
No, I wouldn't have celebrated that. I mean, I would have celebrated the goal. I would not have celebrated the result if that was what helped us. I'd been like, that was some bullshit. We didn't deserve it. We would have lost. I would have been here just as fired up, maybe slightly less.
Yeah, the other thing that I had written down, which we've kind of touched on, this has happened quite a bit, I feel like, especially in our more difficult run in 2023. The subs in general killed our momentum in the game.
That was the other sub. That was the other sub. Benacer at halftime, or slightly at the hour mark. The hour mark.
Yeah, hour mark. But that must have been
Tonali was the one who was bad.
No, but
I don't know why Benacer came out.
I mean, Pioli wanted height. He brought on Bakayoko. He just wanted someone taller, and
No, it's because he just had 5 weeks out. He's not 90 minutes fit. Like, it will have always been the plan to start him for 60 minutes.
But the swap was to Bakayoko for height, when it's like...
You bring on an extra box-to-box player, don't you, really, there? And I didn't understand.
We're losing. You got to go for it.
Yeah. But just looking at the subs that we made, we brought Ibram for Giroud. We brought on Origi for Rebic. Origi, again, absolutely fuck all to talk about.
But I do agree with both those
Sally and Adley. It's all we can do because our depth is so poor. Like it is so poor. I mean, there's a report from Calcio Mercato today, whatever you think of them as a source. I agree with this particular thing where it says that we're basically getting ready for a summer clear out. Like, there are a lot of players that are showing themselves when the going gets tough to not be good enough for this team. We're fighting on 2 fronts, not 4 or 3 if we were still in the cup. Like, we had 6 days between the Atalanta win and the Fiorentina loss. We should have been well rested. We should have been well up for that. We rotated a few players in the starting lineup so we could be fresh for Wednesday, and it didn't happen. Nobody showed up. Like, Rebic, not good enough. Sell him in the summer for me. Origi, we signed him on a free. If we get a few million from him for some club in Turkey, then yeah, he can go for me. Pobega and Franks clearly aren't good enough in the eyes of Pioli. I'd like to see a bit more of Franks. Was hoping he'd have a Chiao-like resurgence, but that's not going to happen. Pobega self a capital game. We know Balotore is not good enough. We know Gabia probably doesn't have a role in this squad anymore. Florenzi's back from injury, and God knows when we're going to see him, if at all. We know Tatarusanu should have been replaced last summer for a more reliable backup goalkeeper. Like, it's not a great squad.
Well, and that's my frustration with the January window. We didn't sign any. I mean, we signed a 4th-string goalkeeper, but
how much of the lack of depth is on Pioli or management? Because the players are there, but he is playing the same exact players every single time.
I definitely think there's blame on both of them, because you're right. The players that he did get brought in, Ronks is not getting minutes. Adley's not getting minutes. Like, we sent
Lazetic out on loan. He's a young striker. He's hungry. Yeah. Why didn't he get any minutes? It's a joke.
The right thing in that. Like, I think with the benefit of hindsight, Colombo should still be here. Like, he'd be our top scorer in Serie A at the moment. Oh no, he'd be level, I think, with Giroud. And he's in a worse team. Mm-hmm. And it's like, sort of what we're doing here. Look at our centre forward department alone. You've got Giroud, who'll turn 37 this year and has started over 90% of our games this season. You've got Origi, who arrived on a free from Liverpool, so a low risk deal, but he's been a bench player for the last 5 years now. And also he arrived with pretty bad tendon problems. So we should have known he wasn't going to hit the ground running. Zlatan's 56, and I don't know what he can give us between now and the end of the season. I really don't. And Rebic is incredibly inconsistent. And here we are. That stat that we read out before, we haven't had a 20-plus goal scoring over a decade. That's pretty problematic. That is pretty problematic. And I think
Baca did it.
Not 20-plus. He got 18.
I think he was at like 18 or 19.
Yeah, Menez got 18 in 14-15 as well, and that was.
I was thinking overall. Are you talking just league?
Yeah, sorry, this is
Okay.
just league. Yeah,
Gotcha.
and yeah, I think Pioli deserves to be questioned for not bringing some of the new signings in sooner, or perhaps he hasn't helped them integrate either. Everybody talks about how he's got a really complex tactical system, and that's why it takes these new signings so long to be integrated. You look at the player turnover that Napoli had last summer. Spalletti's just gone Kavica Govroom and thrown him in at left wing, and he's been fantastic. They lost Fabian Ruiz, of course, and Geese has been a fantastic signing for them because he trusted him. And Ndombele couldn't get a game at Spurs. Spalletti wanted him; he trusted him. You know, they lost Koulibaly to Chelsea. They signed Kim, I want to say from Turkey. Threw him in there, said, "Go for it." You know. And yeah, there's more pressure with us being defending champions and stuff. I get
but
that.
they also signed 2 backup strikers, and both of them have over 10 goals.
Giovanni Simeone, yeah, man, I don't know. Could go on for hours about this, but it wasn't a good game. It was not a good game. We've got to just chalk it off and hope that it was a blip. But I'm just worried about the psychology of this team.
I just really hope the not spending in January was because we wanted to make sure that budget or that I don't know, our whatever the total loss or whatever for the year was as low as possible before we go on a rampage spending this summer, because we need so many players.
We're not going to go on a rampage
I know.
until we have a few seasons in a new stadium.
That's going to be about a decade then.
Yeah, we can't go on a rampage and then spend $700 million on a stadium.
Super League. Say it with me. The reliable sources, the journalists close to the club, are saying that our summer budget net of sales, so we can raise money through sales, like Leao could end up being one of them, will be the same again, around 50 million euros. Good luck with that, because there's about fucking 8 holes in this squad that need addressing with some real quality for us to take that step up. Let's do flop of the match and man of the match. Man of the match, Christ knows, I don't know where it was. Teo for me. I mean, I can't put him at fault for either of the goals, to be honest. However, there was a few question marks about his positioning for the first goal, but that is all really on Tomori for committing an error that bad. And he was at times the only one who looked like he wanted to make things happen in the attacking zone, and he got the goal. He got the goal, which I had a bet on as well, so that was nice. So I'm going to say Teo.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have many choices. For the sake of just being very Pioli out, and I told you so, I'm going to go with Adley for his 7-minute performance.
I was actually going to do Adley as well, but
I'm going to throw Maignan out there.
I'll go Teo for scoring the goal.
Yeah, Maignan made he made 7 saves. And
yeah, no, he did really well.
He couldn't do anything on the.
He got a hand to it, the Jovic one, or a finger, which
point blank header.
Yeah.
Funny that Jovic is another one who we've been linked with heavily. Would probably do a good job as a backup striker, and it's just the way things are. Things going. Flop of the match tomorrow for me. Committed the cardinal sin of the error that led to the goal. I don't think there could be any arguments with that.
Yeah, he was abysmal the entire game, and that was just a dumb penalty to give away in a moment where you felt like, all right, they just gave us their everything in the first half.
Yeah.
They're going to be tired. We could counter.
We've weathered the storm.
And as soon as it started, we did that. It was like, okay.
Minute.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the end of it. There was nothing after that. So
yeah, I said that, when we conceded that penalty, it was like, well, we're not scoring. You can just tell we're not scoring. And we did, but it was consolation in the end. And so as I say, let's hope that's a blip on an otherwise upward trajectory. Progress isn't always linear and stuff, but it does lead us into the game on Wednesday night, the Champions League, last 16 second leg against Spurs. And we spoke to Rick from Last Word on Spurs. So this is it, the big one, the return leg in North London. Spurs against AC Milan at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We take a 1-0 first leg advantage to North London, which is obviously something that we'll be hoping to hang on to. I'm sure Spurs will feel pretty optimistic about their chances as well of going through in this. We're delighted to be joined by Ricky from the Last Word on Spurs. Thank you for joining us, mate.
My pleasure, guys. How are you? Are you okay?
Yes, very good. Excited for this one. I'm actually going to be covering the game on behalf of the site in the press area. So I'm hoping that my 100% record with that continues. But yeah, looking forward to this one. So before we dive into the game specifically, what have you made of Spurs so far this season in general? It seems that the top four push is still on and a bid to be back in the Champions League. But like us, you've had a bit of a wobbly 2023 so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a difficult year, should I say. The fact of the matter is we've got a manager that currently isn't obviously in charge, that's currently nursing an operation. He's had a gallbladder removal. So it's been tough. I think, as you guys probably know and aware of Antonio Conte from obviously your connections in Italy, he's an emotional man, passionate man. Obviously, when he's 100% all in, that's when obviously it's great. When you feel like it isn't all 100% in, that's where the cracks start to firmly appear. And unfortunately, I think Spurs had a really good start to the season with Antonio. I say unfortunately because it seems very quickly that good start was very much kind of decimated very, very early on with the fact that Spurs were starting to lose players, form was going out the window. We had the contractual situation that wasn't resolved going into the World Cup. And it is very, very difficult because, like I say, Spurs find themselves in a situation where they've got a manager in charge now until the end of the season, where what we understand really there's no real confirmation on either side what's going to happen, but it feels very much from a Spurs perspective like it's almost done already. And Antonio will leave the club with almost certainty at the end of the season, as I'm sure you'll know him. Antonio's close confidant, Damasio, said so with pretty much firm confirmation that he doesn't expect Antonio to be here. So it does feel like we're almost in the most politest English term, kind of treading water. We're getting through to the end of the season. This week's been particularly tough for Tottenham. We've gone out of the FA Cup, which obviously, as you guys will know, domestic-wise, trophies mean everything to clubs like Tottenham and Milan. The FA Cup is a real heritage of Tottenham's. They've won it 8 times. They've not won it, for well over 20 years now. So I think there was a hope with Antonio somewhat still around the helm. The club would have gone on to hopefully win a trophy. Of course, they're still in the Champions League, which we're going to come on to in a second. But I think just at the moment, the feeling around Spurs is very negative. And I do think this is the best time for AC Milan to be playing Tottenham for sure. I think there's not a better time right now for AC Milan to be playing a Tottenham side that are simply on the floor, that have lost at the weekend, of course, in a defeat to Wolves. And Wolves on a bad side. Of course, they've got Julian Lopetegui in charge, a good manager. But I think the manner of the way Spurs are playing at the moment doesn't really give anybody much hope going into it. It's probably the most negative I've felt as a Spurs fan in quite a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we're not coming off a win either, so you never know what's going to happen. You kind of touched on it a bit here. My next question, obviously, we are very familiar with Antonio Conte, given his history with Juventus and more recently Inter. How do you think of the job he's done this season when he's been around? Of course, obviously. And do you? You touched on you don't think.
Yeah, listen. I think with Antonio, as I said, I think with him is that if he's 100% all in, you've got a tremendous manager there. And I don't want to just criticise Antonio personally because I think there's a reason why he's not been 100% all in because we haven't necessarily given him the tools to do the job. I think when you've got managers like Antonio Conte and in previous for Tottenham had Jose Mourinho, you have to give them the actual tools to be able to do the job. And Spurs need to really make their mind up what they want to be. We seem to be appointing win-now managers, but not giving them the win-now tools to do the job. So there's absolutely no point of that. If they wanted a project, they should have stuck to Maurizio Pochettino 6-7 years ago. And ultimately, I feel that's probably where Spurs will go back, if I'm being honest with you. I think they will call back to Maurizio and ask if he can take the club back to where he took us to. Whether Maurizio still feels that's worth his time is another question. But in relation to Conte, I just think Antonio wants to win. He's a winner. And when he's not winning, he's not happy. And he's at a club in Tottenham that haven't won for a long, long time. So unfortunately, he's at a club where there's a real, being honest with you, a loser's mentality about it. And we've had some of the best managers in the world come here to try and change it. Like I said, Jose Mourinho, Maurizio, and now obviously Antonio. And all three so far have failed to do so. And I think, again, you have to look at the fact if it's not the managers, then you have to look above why is that the reason. And that's where you start looking at the board and the hierarchy and the chairman for what they're obviously giving to the manager. Is that enough? So I wouldn't blame it all on Antonio. But what I would say is that only from judging from the outside and with some personal connections inside, I know he can be particularly difficult to work with. He wants the best players. He very much does coach the players almost like on an army regiment day-to-day basis where he's getting the absolute most out of every player sometimes overcoaching him as well is another concern. I think we've seen that a lot this season where, Basuma, we haven't seen the same Basuma that we saw at Brighton for a good 4 or 5 seasons where he was the best player for Brighton up against the top 5, top 6. Heung-min Son's in the worst form of his career on the back of winning the Golden Boot last season. Obviously, we lost Rodrigo Bentancur for the end of the season because of this ACL. So I think wherever you turn to at Spurs at the moment, guys, I'm not trying to give you lots of confidence here, but this is genuinely a really, really poor Spurs side right now that are flawed with so many issues. Yes, Antonio's back in the dugout for the game against Milan, but again, don't let that detract from the fact that the one game Antonio was in charge for in the last 6 weeks was a 4-1 defeat to Leicester. So,
is he back in London right now, or is he still in Italy?
Yeah, he came back into London yesterday. As I understand, he's reported to training, so he's back with the players. And I suppose what we're going to be looking for is a rallying cry from the man who hasn't committed his future and looks like to leave in the summer. So I'll let you be the judge of whether that's going to be good enough to get the players up, because I'm not sure it will be, to be honest with you.
When Tottenham drew Milan in the round of 16, what was your gut feeling? Did you think it was going to be winnable, or was it going to be a big hurdle?
Good question. I'll be honest with you. At the time when we were looking at Milan from the outside, I'll be honest, guys, that again, the same as us, we obviously analyse every Spurs game the same way you guys analyse every Milan game. So you'll know a lot more about Milan than I do. But looking from the outside, Milan looked like a team that were seeming to be kind of in transition on the back of winning a league. So it was really, really bizarre that, I think there was quite an excitement around playing at AC Milan because it was a glamour tie. I think a lot of Spurs fans see AC Milan fairly similar as that. It's a club that have sometimes underachieved in the last 20, 30 years, similar to Tottenham, where they are one of the, big established traditional Italian clubs. So I think we all were excited for a glamour tie, but I think we all felt that the players would raise their game. Antonio would raise their game because it's, again, against a rival, if you'd like, of who he managed in Inter Milan, that we would get over the line. I think the first leg, under normal circumstances, a 1-0 defeat isn't the most horrendous result. But I think the reason why there was a lot of hysteria around the 1-0 defeat to AC Milan was purely on the basis that essentially it was the manner of it. If I'm being honest with you guys, it was the manner of it. So, that was the only concern.
Yeah, I was just going to ask more specifically about that first leg. Obviously, we'd heard all about the injury problems that Spurs had going into that game, sort of a makeshift midfield, Son not in great form, Kulusevski and a pundit knows as well, but it was one of those where you think, if we can keep Kane quiet, then we might have half a chance. We scored that early goal, and then I think we set about containing and countering rather than pushing for the setting. But we missed opportunities late on to potentially take a 2 or 3 goal lead over to England. You said Spurs were a bit flat in that first leg. Did you get any hope from it that a second leg turnaround could happen? And is it one of those where you just say that the players were perhaps overawed by a really, really vocal home atmosphere as well?
I think, to be honest with you guys, I think the thing I took out of it most was only 1-0. I think you had 2 great chances at the end of the game where it could have been a lot worse. It could have been 2 or 3. So quite honestly, as I've said, I think for me personally, disappointed by the 1-0 result because it just doesn't feel like a Spurs side right now that have the belief and character to come back, but it could have been a lot worse. I think, again, what will hold us in a lot of hope is that, look, we do have home advantage. I know that regardless of what's happening right now, the fans will come together on Wednesday. They will raise the roof for the occasion. I'm not too sure whether it will be enough. I do think, and you guys will know this better than me, I think it may suit Milan having to pick Spurs off on the counter. That's just my feeling. I think it may potentially be an advantage for Milan. But look, if Tottenham score a quick couple of goals, it does change the whole complex of the tie, and the fans are going to be right behind the team. So it's a big game Wednesday. I think for Spurs, it's for us probably season defining because ultimately, although Spurs are still in a good place to finish in the top 4 of the Premier League, I think if you ask a lot of fans, they're just desperate for a trophy. I don't think the fans are deluded to think they can win the Champions League, but what advancing the Champions League does do is obviously keep the season alive in more than one front. So I think going out of the Champions League on Wednesday against Milan, can't see a way in which Antonio can carry on to the end of the season, being honest with you. I think fans would be, as they are right now, really, really angry. The way Spurs have gone out of the FA Cup during the week. And again, I don't know if I can express to your Italian fans that watch this show. There's a lot of Spurs fans out there that absolutely adore the FA Cup, love the FA Cup as the big domestic cup. And to have the season, it feels almost diminished in the space of a couple of weeks has been really, really hard. So I do think Wednesday is a massive season-defining game for the football club. And we'll have to see, like I say, generally, if there's a way in which they can come through it. But it won't be easy. I think you guys, I'm right in saying, have probably got your strongest team available for Wednesday. And I think there will be a real determination from Milan to come and do the job. I think Milan are capable enough of scoring at Spurs. I think Spurs are always a team that like to concede, which means there will be goals in it. And it will be a really intriguing game for sure.
What do you think your lineup will be given all the injuries right now?
A very good question. I mean, listen, Fraser Forster will start in goal. I would imagine it's an interesting one. Left wing back. I mean, Perisic is great. I mean, listen, you guys will probably know Perisic fairly well from his time on Serie A. Look, he's a brilliant set piece deliverer, set piece taker in terms of delivery. I think he's got 8-9 assists this season off corners and free kicks, which has been absolutely phenomenal. But he hasn't had the legs there, guys. I'll be honest with you, he's been really, really poor. Just, he hasn't had the legs for the division, unfortunately, which is a real shame. I think we've just got him at the wrong time of his career. I mean, it was an Antonio signing. So it's going to be a way up between him and Ben Davies. I would imagine he may edge for Perisic. We've then got that back three, Eric Dyer suspended. So you're looking at Longley, Romero, and maybe Davies coming in as a left centre-back, potentially. Then on the right, you maybe... I can't believe I'm saying this. Emerson Royale will probably go on the right. I mean, there's been obviously the fact Spurs chased Pedro Porro for all of January from Porto, but then Emerson Royale seems to be in the form of his life at the moment. So I imagine he'll start on the right-hand side. Midfield will be tough for Tottenham. I think, again, you're likely, obviously, Bentancur is so huge for Tottenham, influential player for us. Going to likely line up that midfield. I would imagine of probably Oliver Skip, Pierre Højbjerg, and then top wise, you're looking at Harry Kane leading the line. And it's, again, Son and Richarlison have both been so out of form. It's so hard to call it. But I would imagine he will pick Heung-min Son. It is a big, big game. And then Kulusevski operating from the other flank.
Score prediction?
Guys, I feel so bad coming onto a Milan podcast and giving a negative result. I won't do that. I will say 2-1 Spurs. Obviously, in different seasons, the away goal would mean Milan would automatically go through, but I think that means it will go straight to extra time and penalties. And then from there, guys, it's anyone's game. It's a lottery. I will edge Spurs to go through. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I do think, as I've said to you guys, to give you some hope, I think Milan are playing Tottenham at the best possible time. I genuinely believe that. I think Milan are playing Tottenham at the best possible time they can ask for. And I think if Milan come with their A game to Spurs, they can get through for sure.
Ricky, thank you so much for your time. And I would wish you the best of luck for Wednesday, but I wouldn't really mean it.
No, that's fine. I just hope, fingers crossed, I'm back on here next season with you guys and we're talking about the Champions League and not the Europa League, right? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be exactly nice. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Cheers,
thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Bye. Cheers.
We should probably give our predictions for the game as well. Kind of forgot that when Ricky was on, but thank you very much to him for joining us. I kind of echo his sentiments in that a clean sheet doesn't feel like an option for us, to be honest, and I can see them scoring a couple of goals. However, I think this is a step too far for us. I still make Spurs big favourites to go through. People can have a go at me for being negative, but I think that they'll score early or definitely in the first half, which will put us under serious pressure. And I think we lose 3-0. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Well, for as negative as I just was, I was actually going to go with a win. I think it's going to be 1-1 with us going through on the goal from last time.
Since AJ predicted a win, we're going to lose. I'm going to go 1-0.
Well, that wouldn't be
wait,
enough.
1-0 will take us to extra time.
Don't want penalties.
If we go to penalties, I feel like we can win with Mignon.
Yeah.
Actually, Kane's a bottle job. Yeah, that's the one time that I'm proud to admit that. That'd be good.
Well, and their goalkeeper, I don't think he could save.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. As I say, I'm going to be at the ground for this one. So if we do score and if we do go through, I'll have to maintain professionalism. But the good news is sold out away end obviously will be backed by a much larger representation of the Curva Sud and stuff. So it should be a good atmosphere. And if we get on top, then hopefully it'll silence the home fans or make them turn on Spurs a bit because they've been in difficult form. But yeah, let's just hope for the best, boys, because who knows what could happen in quarter final. It looks like Benfica are going to go through, so could potentially draw them. There may be a couple of other upsets. Yeah, let's hope for the best. Right, we'll move on to some not Salernitana, because that will be...
We're not going to do that? We played them on Monday. I figured we'd...
Oh, are we going to record...
That was what I thought. I guess we
didn't discuss it.
Yeah, no, let's go with it. Salernitana at home then is the game that follows the Champions League semi-finals. Champions League last 16 second leg, and that'll no doubt influence our mood going into this one. Salernitana are having a season that is a lot better than where they were at this point last season, given that they were pretty much relegated before that ridiculous miracle that they managed to achieve. This season, they're currently 7 points above the bottom three, which is pretty good. They've won 6 out of 25 games, losing 12. They've scored 28 goals, letting 44, so the goal difference isn't really the best. They beat Monza 3-0 in round number 24, which was a pretty big statement result. Their other results this year, though, are not particularly great. Lost 3-0 to Juve, 2-0 to Lazio, 2-0 to Napoli, 8-2 away at Atalanta. I can't remember what they did in the last game. They drew 0-0 with Sampdoria. I actually saw that, and it was a crap game. How we feel about this one?
Really positive, regardless of the result against Spurs and Fiorentina. We've played them 3 times in Serie A in our history. We've scored 6 goals. They've scored 3. 5 of those 6 goals have been in the opening 20 minutes. 3 of them have been in the opening 5 minutes. So it should be a win. Should be.
A lot of games should be a win.
Yeah, but this one should really be a win.
Like Everton, every point matters right now for both Milan and Everton, so this has to be a win. If not, then Champions League could start to be out of the picture.
Yeah, like if we drop points in this, then forget about it. But I don't think we will. I don't want to be disrespectful to Salernitana, but they're not really a team that strikes fear into me in the same way that even like Verona, we know can be a really, really tough opponent because they've got history and experience in the league and stuff like that. And I'm going to say that we win 2-0. We don't really know what the injury situation is going to be. We don't know if we're going to be able to field the full strength 11. A lot depends on how the Spurs game goes and if it goes to extra time and the condition of the players. So all we can do is predict, and I'm going to say we win 2-0.
Yeah, I'll go 2-0 as well.
I'm going to go 2-1 because you know that Pioli is going to bench Chow for the rest of the season. So.
He says, who's been the best player? Get rid of him every time.
He is against Spurs. Yeah. Well, he's rumored to be.
Yeah.
Just looking at the last lineup that Salernitana played, and Ochoa is obviously in net, so we can potentially expect a ridiculous, otherworldly performance from him.
Well, he saved 8 from us last time.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. The other players that people will probably know are Antonio Candreva and
Krzysztof Piątek.
Boulaye is pretty good as well, but he's been starting from the bench, as has Bonazzoli. Fingers crossed that we get a regulation win in that one. Right, let's do some questions. Jangan Lupa Bernafas, I hope I've done okay with that one. What should Milan do with Yassine Adli?
Play him. That's it. Just play him.
Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen with Brahim Diaz. Like I'm leaning more and more towards let's just not pay the 20 million or whatever's needed and just kind of figure things out.
He's not going to play at Madrid.
No. Unless they lose Asensio, in which case I'd happily do a little swapperoo on that. We sign
Be a
Asensio.
huge boost for us. We'd actually have a right winger.
There are other options out there for the number 10 role, given what Pioli likes as well. There's Kamada, who's at Frankfurt, who we apparently are scouting. There's Husamawa, who we're linked with all the time. I do think there are better, more consistent options that Pioli would like more.
We can scout all we want, but with 50 million, we ain't buying shit. Literally, like, you can't buy shit in a soccer market with 50 million. So.
Could have bought Dybala last season. Could have.
I mean, we bought CDK, and look how that turned out.
Yeah. Couple of questions we got, one from Juna and one from Liam B about the lineup for midweek, and particularly centre backs. Would we play Kier, and if so, who would we drop him for? Of course, in the first leg, he did a pretty good job against Harry Kane in keeping him quiet. I wouldn't personally. I don't think that we can. I don't think Kier can repeat that performance away from home.
They'll have watched him.
Not with his lack of match rhythm and the fact that he should have been booked at least twice in that first half.
Yeah. If they play him, I don't mind as long as they take him off as soon as he gets carded, and he will.
Mm-hmm. He will. Heinrich Lunger asks, since Firmino is going to leave Liverpool, should we go for him?
No.
Maddie, I'm sure you'd love this.
No, I mean, I don't care about ex-Liverpool players besides they play for the team one of the most hated teams. But I'm not going to get Liverpool handouts anymore. Look how well Origi turned out.
I mean, we didn't give them anything.
I said handouts. Liverpool handouts.
Yeah, look, either way,
I'm not giving them anything.
Firmino would have been better for us than Origi, and I'm not even just saying that with hindsight, which is obviously crystal clear. But I just think in the way that he operates, he would be far more similar and far more useful, far more suited, and far more useful to the way that we're trying to play. And I think I could see him and Leao striking up more chemistry, whereas Origi just comes on and looks like he can't do anything particularly well at all, So I would have preferred him, but I don't think we're going to sign another player on a free from Liverpool after the way the last one worked out.
I don't think the management thinks like that. I don't think they're gonna be like, well, this free was bad. We can no longer get frees from this club because they're all bad. Like, we signed their second, third string striker on a free. Like, in hindsight, you shouldn't expect a whole lot more.
He came in and scored goals.
Yeah, but he also scored a couple goals for us. He scored 2 or 3, hasn't he?
Two, and yeah,
he also doesn't get service though.
Yeah, sucks when he has it.
You're right.
Firmino's got like 9 goals, I think, in the league this season, which isn't too bad. But
hey, he's our highest scorer.
There's also some questions about his injury record and stuff like that. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't think that we are going to go for a free transfer of a striker in their 30s and think that's the fix. We need to
27?
What do you mean? That is the Milan DNA. Free strikers with injury records 31. In their 30s.
31.
Yo, sign him up.
That's the ideal image for our youth project that we've been running for the last 5 years,
We need to invest basically in a young centre forward who's going to lead the line for the future, and we need to put faith in them. Krisan Kasaba, how much would you sell Leao for in the summer? Do you think we'll get even 60 million for a player who's got a year left on their contract?
I think we're going to renew him and then sell him for
same summer.
Yeah.
I understand that thought and mentality, but I wonder if we would. I feel like we might come to that conclusion, but look, can we at least renew you on a short-term thing so we could sell you for more? And I could see Leao saying yes, but I could also then see the management we didn't get a good enough offer and keeping him, and that would really soil.
We are owned by Americans now, and American businessmen are
cutthroat bastards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could see that happening and then really spoiling Leao's relationship with us and then him leaving free like 2 years later. So I hope that doesn't go down.
If Leao has any sense, it sounds like he does want to actually renew with us,
Yeah,
but there's
I
a
think
lot of various obstacles that need to be overcome, and thankfully we've got a few months before the summer to try and sort of figure those out. And I think Champions League qualification is going to be massive. If we miss out, then I think his agents will be fielding bids and stuff. But if Leao's got any sense, he'll stick around for another year with us, because I think what we've seen so far in 2023. As we've seen in the previous 2 seasons before that as well, is that he isn't close to the finished product yet. And the clubs that would be interested in him and could afford him, he isn't benching any of their wingers at the moment. So he needs to have a season where he keeps it up with us for an entire year. I think that benefits everybody involved. For that to happen, we need a renewal to materialise. But I think if we do renew Leao, and I think it's in the balance at the moment, but if we do renew him, it'll be with the promise that in time and when the moment's right, we'll let him flee the nest.
I think a big thing is still that fine he has to pay.
Yeah.
I think if we just say we value you at $7 million, if that's something you're okay with, and we pay that fine, then we'll pay the fine, but we'll give you 3.5 for 5 years until it recoups our payment or something. And I don't know if he'd accept that or if his agent would accept that, but
how much is he on now?
Like
1.5.
Yeah, that's like insulting.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
but so is assuming we should pay his $19 million fine for his actions.
Do you know what's not insulting though? Is offering to quintuple his pay, or whatever it is if you times it by 5. Like we're offering him 7 million per year, 7.5 including bonuses. That is a lot of money for Leao to say that's still not good enough when he's done fuck all this year so far. He's got to be paid at that level, to be paid as our best player. You better lead the team. You better. You can't have anonymous games. Like you
also
get paid world beater money. You better beat the fucking world.
Teams that are looking to buy him, that is like the lowest paid player on their team.
Yeah, and they can do it. And Chelsea would probably pay him 10 million a year. PSG would probably pay him 15 million a year, whatever it might be. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he does the best thing for him, stay with us for another year, try and get that consistently good season all the way through. We get a nice transfer fee, you get a big pay rise, and you get a starting spot at your new club. Like, if he leaves this summer, I don't think it's the right time for anyone involved, I'm sure we'll find out more based on where we finish in the table, though. We'll leave it there, boys. We'll leave it there. It's been an action-packed one. Thank you to everyone who listened throughout the duration. As always, drop us a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Comment with your lineup. Comment with your predictions for the Spurs game and what you think about Pioli's future, Leao's future. We're always looking to hear from you. And drop us a rating on your favourite podcast platform as well. That would really help our algorithm. We appreciate that. Thank you again to Ricky for joining us for the Spurs preview. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yep, I'm here. Or I was here. I probably will be next week as well. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, it was a good one. I don't know when we're recording next week, but I will do my best to be here.
Good pre-planning from us, as always. Yeah,
I'm not making any promises.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll catch you in a week and a bit.
Eccolo Ante in area di rigore, Ante, vibra, gol! Vediamo se è buono, ce lo dà buono,